Great literature is a hard thing to define. It's easy to recognize great literature, but defining it in an objective way is much more difficult. Literature is traditionally taught in the confines of a classroom, but actual recognition of great literature is much more personal. The definition of great literature changes over time. What may have been considered a layman's reading a few centuries ago may be considered high literature today. Defining literature is not concrete. Each one of us has his own checklist for how they determine what is or isn't literature. One quality that I look for in great literature is subtlety. In non-literary reading, information is oftentimes led to the reader in order to advance the plot as smoothly and efficiently as possible. There is no room for ambiguity. In great literature, though, plot devices are conveyed with subtlety. Subtlety is the difference between novels meant to give the author's answers and literature which is meant to ask the questions. While literature often does give the solution in the form of a theme, great literature often allows for counterpoints and discussion involving the proposed question. The ideas that are proposed in a piece of great literature are meant to evoke thoughts. For example, I think the book Lord of the Flies by William Golding is an example of bad literature, at least in terms of what I look for in great literature. The symbolism and themes are so concrete that the novel leaves little room for discussion. There are few interpretations that can be taken from the novel besides what Golding chose to convey. Great literature should incorporate subtlety in such a way so that the piece is open to many different interpretations, not purely what the author intended. This definition of great literature has exceptions, however. Animal Farm by George Orwell is very unsubtle, but it's still a piece of great literature. This is because the hypocrisies and themes are needed to be unsubtle in order to draw resemblances to Soviet Russia. The second quality I look for in great literature is depth. Similarly to how subtlety offers the text to be interpreted in many different ways and evokes discussion, depth allows the different ideas in the text to be incorporated beyond the surface level. Depth is a subtext in a novel. Depth is what is uncovered from analyzing the text from a different perspective. Depth is hidden layering of ideas that may or may not be uncovered by a reader. In pieces of great literature, there is always something new to take away from a rereading. Depth is what makes literature art and allows the piece of literature to exist independently from what its author, sometimes even holding meaning that the author did not intend. For example, in Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, the true motive of why Raskolnikov murdered the pawnshop is skewed. There is a number of philosophical ideas that contribute to the reason Raskolnikov murdered the pawnbroker, and none of them are explicit enough to be taken as fact. The ambiguity and motive that surrounds the murder and what the murder means for the novel as a whole is what gives Crime and Punishment depth and makes it great literature. Another quality I look for in great literature is timelessness. Though great literature should be interpreted in context, for example, comparing Godot to the plays and literature that came before it and events that led to its creation, the ideas that exist should be applicable to anyone, regardless of time period. Great literature is not about trends, but about the universal questions that we struggle to find answers for, such as mortality, society, and morality. Shakespeare and Dickens mostly lived at time periods drastically different from ours, but their ideas and themes still connect to us and explore questions we still struggle with. For example, Moby Dick by Herman Melville is a book about obsession. Though whale hunters are far from central to our modern culture, obsession is a theme that continues to be explored through art such as the movie The Girl on a Train. The book that has been the most influential in my life has been The Crucible by Arthur Miller. I read The Crucible in middle school, and it drastically shaped my perception of how people behave in large groups. In The Crucible, the town people act irrationally and in hysteria because of their group thought. The Crucible taught me the importance of thinking independently and analyzing situations for myself, as opposed to letting myself be influenced by the behaviors and beliefs of others. The town of Salem helped me understand that the group opinion is not always right, even if many in the group are smarter than you. Beliefs and actions must be challenged. Arguing against a belief is the best way to assure that it is true. Every group of people needs its dissenters, and the majority must listen to the differing opinions instead of condemning them. When the minority are not respected and the group consensus is unable to be challenged, the majority hold a dangerous free reign. The Crucible allowed me to scrutinize every one of my convictions and let myself be wrong.